Well, earlier this week, we saw associations of taxi drivers and truckers protesting the steep rise in fuel prices. They blocked major entrances and exits to the Mbombela CBD and numerous Mpumalanga communities. The protests then moved to KwaZulu-Natal as roads on the R34 John Ross Highway between Richards Bay and Empangeni were also blocked by trucks. To tell us more about these protests and the demands made by the associations, we're joined by Mary Phadi, who is the president of the South African Trucker Association. Mary, thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us on the Weekend Report this morning. Let's start by getting a reaction from you, your association, on some of the protestations we saw this week.
The association was not involved, with the protest. It was just unfortunate that the trucks were used to close the road, especially in Mbombela, and that incident happened the next day, whatever that we've seen in the KZN.
Right. Well, even though the association has distanced itself from the protest that we saw, Mary, I am not without any doubt that you are aware of how these hikes in petrol prices are affecting your members. What are they saying in terms of their livelihoods and their ability to carry out their duties when it comes to these fuel hikes?
Look, we are feeling it, and I must say that the situation is worsening from the pandemic, and obviously business is not doing well. When we were trying to recover from the economy, then there was a price hike of the fuel, and on top of the problems that we have the high unemployment rate, we have the load shedding. So it gets worse every day. And I must say that TASA has got a view that the government can do better. We should put some proposals on the table. And we cannot continue this way in this country.
I mean, as you've mentioned, some of the truckers and taxi drivers and associations that were, in fact, involved on the protests have made demands on government to intervene in some way, particularly when it comes to the fuel hikes. In your mind, as the association, how can government best assist not only your sector, but, the transport and logistics industry as a whole in terms of dealing with the fuel hikes? I mean, are there interventions that you already have in mind that government could potentially put in place currently to curb some of these effects?
Ntokozo, let us clarify this. We have engaged with the business, some of the truckers, and it has been confirmed that none of them is going to a strike yet. But with regard to the issue of the current situation, there are things that the government can do. The issue of the rebate. For example, if you've got a farm, diesel is much cheaper. But if you use a normal commercial land, then it gets to be expensive. So the government can do things that can be able to assist companies to survive this situation. Not only that, I should think that the government must get to the stage whereby they engage with business. They should not, make decisions, go on TV and say that there's a petrol hike without really engaging with us. And, that is a serious problem because they must understand, government must understand now they've gone to the stage whereby they must talk to the community. They must engage the public. We have moved away from listening to what the government is saying, but we are now involved with everything that is happening.
I mean, as an association, how are you trying to aid the members who form part of your organization in coming to terms with this reality? Because the reality is, Mary, we have an invasion out in Ukraine that is affecting global prices when it comes to oil and gas. We're feeling the effects of that, obviously, in our petrol price. We're feeling the effects of that even when it comes to the cost of food in this country. And so there are compounding consequences to the reality that we're facing, a reality that we don't know if it's going to change in the coming weeks or the coming months. So conversation is necessary amongst your members to quell some of the frustrations that they must be going through. How are you engaging with them to try and do just that?
What we are trying to do is that we are engaging our suppliers. We are trying to say to them they must increase the rate. Obviously, they also have their own challenges because everything is getting expensive. But we are engaging with companies that have given our members contracts that they must increase the rate. And secondly is that if government can speak to the public, they'll be able to get answers. I don't think that the issue of the fight in the Ukraine can make us to suffer. There can be a solution. And I always say that there's always a way to resolve issues. But if we allow ourselves to be under the table and struggle with others, then we'll obviously struggle. I feel like, we can do something. There must be somewhere in the world a country that will be able to assist South Africa to survive the situation.
Now, you have said that as an association you were not involved in the protests, that we saw that in fact it was just a number of vehicles being utilized in the demonstrations. In the event, though, that members of the association do make a resounding call for some sort of protestation or some sort of shutdown, are you willing to get on board with that? Is that something that you foresee as being part of, the cards that you deal the state in terms of getting the required response that you need?
We have had a meeting with the Minister of Transport. We have signed the implementation plan. We have agreed as the task team with the things that we should follow and the way we should do things. At the moment, our members has not spoken about the issue of the fuel prices. It has been, look, the fuel prices is not happening today. It has been happening for the past 2 years. And for the past 2 years, we've been trying to engage. And there's nothing that is happening from that side. But we need to come with another way of trying to engage more. And I think it is time for the government to allow us to have a say, even if it's parliament. We should move away from being fed with information. We should know what is happening in our country. So our members are interested. We've signed the implementation plan, and our members are telling themselves that things are going to change. And soon, if they don't talk to us, then we will abandon the agreement. But for now, they are engaging and they are talking to us, and we are willing to meet them halfway so that we can resolve issues. And I should think that as we meet from time to time, as we maybe we'll knock at the door, obviously, of the office of the DPE and the Department of Minerals. We'll talk to them, and say, Minerals and Energy, and talk to them and say, what is it that you can do for us? How can you assist us to survive? In the apartheid time, companies were assisted, and I don't understand why we should leave our own people to die, whereas we can be assisted by the government to get where we want to get. During the pandemic, TASA, our association, had engaged with some departments, but there was no funding to date. We engaged with the banks, but there was no funding to date. But we were promised that there would be funding. So I still feel that if the government is really prepared, they can assist business, and business will succeed because the government is coming to meet us halfway. So we'll see how the engagements are going. We'll see how much we knock at the door and how much they open. But if they don't do that, we'll have to abandon the agreement.
Phadi, you say that there's an implementation plan in place, and that is surely a hopeful sign. But the question is whether or not the plan has started trickling down to the ground. My concern is for a lot of these transport and logistics companies who are being heavily battered by these fuel price increments that aren't likely to be going anywhere anytime soon. Are there businesses that you know of already that are potentially already going out of business because of the effects of the petrol price, because of how untenable the environment is? And if so, how is this implementation plan assisting those particular businesses? Phadi? All right. We appear to have lost our connection there with Mayor Phadi. That is Mary Phadi, who is the president of the South African Truck Association. It's unfortunate that we haven't been able to get her to answer that question about businesses potentially out of business because as a result, rather, of that petrol price increase. But